Hello everyone, let's talk about Team Fortress 2's Medieval Mode. Medieval Mode was added back in 2010 to Team Fortress 2, I believe, and since then, let's face it, it hasn't been played an awful lot. There is one official Valve map for Medieval Mode, which is CP Group Keep. Fairly simple, single stage attack defend map. A and B are free for all to capture at the start of the game, and C is locked behind a portcullis inside a castle until both A and B have been captured by the attacking team, blue. And red spawn inside the castle. They are the defenders, and they have access to the castle at all stages of the game, and their objective is to capture C as long as the time still remains on the clock. Now, aside from this being quite a fun game mode in the end, let's talk about some of its problems, and then I'll attempt to address some of these issues to talk about how Medieval Mode could be made more popular in the future, since I believe it's a mode that has genuine potential. It's quite a fun alternative game mode. So first of all, Medieval Mode is not selected by default, and that means that newer players have to go deliberately out of their way to choose Medieval Mode in their map rotation. And I believe this is harmful because it's quite a simple gimmick to understand, right? Medieval mode. You can only use weapons that would be realistic from the medieval time period. So you can use swords, you can use bow and arrow, you cannot use, say, grenade launchers, rocket launchers, guns, anything like that. So, a very simple thing to understand. Even if you're a newer player, I don't think this is a particularly confusing or demanding concept to grasp at all. So I think it would be perfectly justifiable to make this more accessible to newer players by putting it in the map rotation. This is down in the MISC section of the map selection, in case you didn't already know that. And then there's numerous other problems with the mode itself that don't relate to map rotations. So first of all, there's class balance. Now, Sniper, Demo Knight, and Spy are really the staples of casual medieval mode, and as far as I'm concerned, this is not really played competitively in a serious way at all. So, again, I'm just going to be addressing this from a casual perspective. So, really, Demo Knight is pretty much the dominant force, and that's because his shields, again, allowed in medieval modes, allows him to have crits on demand on his melee weapons, which is really strong. In addition to Demo Knight's medium to large health pool, he has 175 health. So, Spy obviously has his backstab insta-kill, which you can use, and Sniper has the Huntsman, along with a bunch of secondaries and melees that are allowed to be used, like the Razorback, Cozy Camper, Darwin's Danger Shield if you really want, and so on and so forth. So then there's the issue as well as class balance, since really there's no reason to choose a class like, say, Soldier or Pyro over Demo. There's no real reason to choose, I don't know. Well, you could choose Medic, he has some pretty decent options, but there's no real reason to choose someone like Heavy when you could just choose, Demo Knight, Sniper, Spy, Medic maybe, so there's Crusader's Crossbow and so on. And then there's the issue pertaining to the map itself. So defending, or the don't lose condition, is much harder, or much easier I should say, than the win condition, since it's much easier to simply defend a point by rallying your whole team around it in an organised format, than it is to attack that point. Attack defend always has this problem. It's easier to defend than it is to attack, hence a lot of matches can end up quite one-sided, or even if they aren't one-sided, are you really getting a fair game if one side has an advantage over the other? So this is a more general issue with attack defend rather than an issue with CP Group Keep specifically and medieval mode. I generally find it to be not too much of a problem in casual, but then again I treat it more as a deathmatch than a serious objective-based game mode, which I think the majority of people do as well. But really, if you're going to be playing CP Group Keep, don't expect anything other than just a bunch of people whacking each other with swords and chatting in medieval chat. Yeah, it's not played very seriously. Although I don't think we can expect much to change in regards to medieval mode, I'm going to make some suggestions of what I think would improve the match. And let's start with the game mode and the map. So CP Group Keep is a really nice map in terms of the aesthetics, and also I think the way it plays is, I think it's fairly decent because Demo Knights can use their jumping to get on top of the battlements, And it's nice to have a little battle for the battlements at the start where the Demo Knights from blue team can jump up, and the Demo Knights from red team can try and defend their snipers and so on. That makes for a nice bit of gameplay there. What I do think is that there need to be some alternative routes into the castle in an ideal world that don't rely on shield jumping. Because if you can't shrimp very well, or I'm not sure if is shrimping the official term? Anyway, Demo Knights can use their shield charge to get inside the castle without having to use the main gate, but for all other classes than Demo Knights, the gate essentially just becomes a massive choke point where people are whacking each other with Islanders, golf clubs, pans, anything else that comes to hand. So essentially I think there ought to be perhaps one side route into the castle. I think this would improve the mode in general, the map and the mode in general, but that's just a minor kind of nitpick since, again, this isn't played seriously. I'm not trying to make the map viable and competitive or anything. Then there's the more general problems, as I mentioned before, with the attack-defend format. And I think although this can't really be solved, it's not too much of an issue as it stands, because, like I said, this isn't really going to be played in competitive ever, realistically. Now I'm going to talk about class balance. As I said, there's no real reason to choose Pyro or Engineer over Demo Knight, Spy, Sniper, or Medic. So I thought we could make some changes there. So Engineer has access to the Gunslinger, which gives him 150 health and guaranteed critical hits, but even so, there's no real reason when you could just get on-demand crits with Demo Knights and still have 25 extra health. So let's talk about how we can improve upon that. So Engineer cannot build buildings in medieval mode, but I think this could be changed. Obviously in a medieval melee only effectively mode, a sentry would be completely overpowered and nuts, but what if you could allow the Engineer to build a dispenser? I think that this could create an interesting rally point where one team could be sort of rallying around their dispenser while the other team are trying to destroy it, and it would make Engineer just a little bit more viable inside medieval mode. Obviously this would probably require re-theming, so I would suggest something similar to the resupply cabinet, where it has, you know, some kind of wooden kind of theme with potentially some weapons inside it, like an axe or something like that. That would be kind of a nice little touch. Obviously you could argue that construction PDAs aren't realistic, but to be honest, you can use garden rakes in this game mode. Why can't the Engineer build a dispenser? But there you go. And then there's some other issues. So first of all, I would suggest making Pyro slightly more viable by simply allowing him to use his Air Blast. And I know that, obviously, allowing him to use his flamethrower, but only part of it, would be a bit clumsy. But I think that being able to air blast people off the battlements could offer some kind of counterplay to the Demo Knights, where you sort of have the Demo Knights leap up onto the battlements, and then the Pyros can use air blasts to try and deflect them away from that. But I think that, obviously, since allowing them to use flamethrowers left click, where it just shoots flames at people, would be overpowered, so perhaps if you would allow some kind of format where they can air blast only, or offer some kind of alternative way of that working, such as right-clicking with a melee weapon to do that same effect, I think that could be achieved. And for those saying that it wouldn't be realistic, well, of course not, but you know, this is ultimately about people trying to have fun with a vague medieval theme. It's not really very strictly supposed to be a realistic interpretation of what medieval era combat would have looked like. I mean, come on. So I think that could be an interesting idea right there. I don't know if it would have much utility on attack, but you could of course use it to perhaps deflect spies away from you as well. That might be useful if they're trying to trick stab you or something like that. You could knock people down hills. This map's got quite a lot of high points where you could knock people off cliffs and that kind of thing. It could be interesting. And then, last but not least, I think that there should be some extra maps. Now, I know that the community has made some extra maps for medieval mode, but if these could be introduced into official Valve servers, I don't see why not, if they are indeed fully finished and so on and so forth, and if they fit with the aesthetic, and if not, I'm sure there'd be several map makers even who'd be happy to make an official map for this game mode. It could follow the same simple aesthetic, if not a castle, then maybe a medieval town, similar to the one we see in part of the Groot Keep, a kind of medieval countryside, perhaps with a ruined fort or something like that. Perhaps we could have even a hideout or something similar. I think all of those could potentially make really interesting ideas for medieval mode in the future. Well, what do you think? I would be happy to hear. And in the meantime, I will see you in the next video. And that is the end of this one. Goodbye.